Most people walked past Maria like she wasn't even there. Every morning, before the sun even thought about rising, she pushed open the glass doors of Silverstein, corporate tower with her worn-out cleaning cart and that tired little smile she always tried to hold on to. She wasn't loud, she didn't complain. She didn't gossip like the others. She just worked. Quietly, softly, almost like she was scared to take up space. Her uniform was faded. The shoes she wore were cracked at the sides, and her hands. Her hands looked older than the rest of her. Years of scrubbing floors, lifting trash bags, and wiping down desks had left them rough and scarred. Still, every time someone made eye contact with her, she'd gently nod with kindness, even when they pretended she wasn't worth noticing. But some people didn't just ignore her. They enjoyed humiliating her. Like Ava. Ava walked into the building late almost every day, strutting like she owned it, even though she was just another employee. She was always dressed in designer clothes and expensive perfume that announced her arrival before she even spoke. And of course, she always had something to say. "Oh, look," Ava said one morning with a fake gasp, pointing at Maria as she mopped the lobby floor. "Careful, guys, don't step on the ancient artifact." Her co-workers burst into laughter. Maria didn't respond. She just dipped the mop into the bucket and kept working. Ava wasn't satisfied with silence. "Oh, come on," she mocked, tilting her head. "You can talk, right? Or does your paycheck only include breathing?" Everyone laughed again. Maria simply glanced up for a second. And instead of snapping back or defending herself, she just smiled. A tired, soft smile, as if she had already lived through worse things than a spoiled girl with too much eyeliner. That annoyed Ava even more. "Ugh, whatever," she muttered, flipping her hair and walking away like she won the battle. But Maria didn't care about winning anything. She wasn't here for pride. She wasn't here to impress anyone. She was here to survive. After the lobby was clean, she made her way to the top floor and the executive level, the place everyone treated like royalty zone. No one breathed normally up there. People whispered, straightened their clothes, checked their posture, and acted like they were auditioning for billionaire approval. The CEO's office sat at the end of the hall. Tall glass windows, gold handles, marble floors. Maria paused outside the door for a moment like she always did, took a slow breath, then walked inside once she was sure no one was there. She cleaned carefully like the room was sacred. But something on the CEO's desk caught her attention that morning. A framed family photo. She froze. Her heart didn't just drop, it crashed. A little boy in the photo? Big brown eyes, crooked smile, holding a tiny toy airplane. Her hand trembled as she reached out, her fingertips barely touching the corner of the frame. "I know those eyes," she whispered to herself, voice shaky. Her throat tightened. Her chest ached. She gently traced the boy's face like she was afraid he would disappear if she blinked. Then she saw the name engraved at the bottom of the frame. Lucas Bennett, CEO, Silverstein Corporation. Her legs almost gave out. She pressed her hand to her mouth as tears filled her eyes. Because that boy, that wasn't just some random child. That was her son. The one she lost. The one she searched for. The one she prayed for every night. Even when life crushed her hope until it felt paper thin. For a second, she wanted to scream. For another second, she wanted to run. But instead, she did what she always did. She stayed silent. She wiped away her tears with the sleeve of her uniform, straightened the photo, picked up her mop, and went back to work. To everyone else, she was just the janitor. But only she knew. She was cleaning the floors of the son she never stopped loving. That night, Maria barely slept. She just lay there, staring at the ceiling of her tiny apartment. The same one with peeling, paint, and a refrigerator that hummed, louder than a motorcycle. Her hands rested on her chest as she replayed that photo over and over in her mind. Lucas smiling, happy, thriving. A life so different from the one she gave him. She knew she should have felt joy seeing him safe and successful. But mixed with that relief was a heavy, aching guilt that never left her since the day she lost him. She whispered his name like a prayer. Like she was afraid if she said it too loud, the memory would hurt even worse. "Lucas!" Her voice cracked. She blinked away tears, but they just kept coming. She didn't cry because he didn't know her. She cried because he shouldn't have grown up needing to forget her to survive. She closed her eyes, and just like that, she wasn't in her apartment anymore. Her mind dragged her back years and to the life before everything fell apart. Back then, Maria wasn't a janitor. She was a young mother with dreams bigger than her circumstances. Lucas was her whole world. A tiny boy with chubby cheeks who loved running, barefoot around the yard while chasing butterflies. His laugh used to fill the house like sunlight, but not everything was warm back then. Maria's husband, Daniel, was a storm, unpredictable, loud, angry at everything and nothing. The alcohol made him mean, and every argument felt like walking barefoot on broken glass. The night everything changed still haunted her. She remembered holding Lucas, rocking him while Daniel shouted about money, about bills, about how her working multiple jobs wasn't enough. She shielded Lucas's ears, whispering, "It's okay, baby. Mommy's here." But the yelling escalated, doors slammed, glass shattered, and then his rage turned toward Lucas. That was her breaking point. Maria grabbed her son, snatched only what she could carry, and ran. It wasn't strength that pushed her forward, and it was fear. Fear of what would happen if she stayed one more night. For weeks they bounced around, shelters, cheap motels, strangers offering help. Maria worked whatever she could find, washing dishes, cleaning houses, babysitting, anything to keep Lucas fed. But survival wasn't easy. There were days when Lucas ate while she pretended she wasn't hungry. She didn't regret leaving. She regretted losing stability before she was ready. Then one day, the worst moment of her life happened. While she was working a cleaning shift, a social worker noticed Lucas sitting quietly in a motel lobby with no supervision. She tried explaining, tried begging, but her words didn't matter. They said she was unstable, homeless, unable to provide a safe home. They took him. Maria remembered falling to her knees in that parking lot, screaming his name while he stretched his arms toward her through the back window of the car. "Mommy, Mommy!" It was the last time she heard his voice, the last time she held him. And after that, silence. Social services wouldn't tell her where he was. Records were sealed. Adoptive parents wanted privacy. She knocked on every office door she could find, filled out form after form, made phone call after phone call, but nothing led to him. Eventually, her fight didn't end. It became part of her. Every job, every breath, every lonely night, she carried him with her. The next morning at Silverstein Corporate, Maria walked in slower than usual. Her heart felt too heavy. Every hallway seemed longer, every voice louder, every polished surface colder. Ava spotted her again. "Ugh, there she is," she sighed dramatically, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Can someone tell her this place is a business, not a retirement home?" People snickered. Maria didn't look at her this time. She just kept pushing her cart. But something was different today. As Maria reached the top floor, an assistant rushed past her, whispering to a coworker like she had breaking news. "The CEO's coming in early today, and apparently he's not in a good mood." Maria's breath hitched. Lucas. She wasn't ready to see him. Not like this. Not without a plan. Not without the strength to stand tall. But fate didn't care about timing. Because before she could turn away, the elevator dinged, and the CEO, her son, stepped out. Tall, confident, a presence that made everyone straighten up like soldiers. Maria froze. Her heartbeat wasn't just fast, it was trembling. He walked past everyone with purpose, eyes sharp, phone in hand, until he saw her. His steps slowed. His brows pulled together the slightest bit. Curiosity, recognition, something she couldn't read. Maria quickly looked down like the floor. Suddenly became the most interesting thing in the world. Lucas said nothing. He just stared for another second, before walking into his office and closing the door behind him. Maria let out a shaky breath. She wasn't sure if that moment hurt more, or gave her hope. For the rest of the morning, Maria tried to disappear into her work the way she always did, but her hands wouldn't stop shaking. Every time she squeezed the spray bottle or wrung out the mop, her fingers trembled like her body was replaying that moment on a loop. The way Lucas slowed down, the way he looked at her, the way something flickered across his face, as if his mind was searching for a missing memory. She told herself not to hope. Hope hurts more than truth. But her heart didn't care what her head tried to warn her about. Meanwhile, upstairs, the building had flipped into silent chaos. Assistants rushed back and forth. Doors opened and shut. Phones rang nonstop. The energy shifted because when the CEO was in the building and not in a good mood, everyone walked like the floor was cracked glass. Ava, who spent most mornings looking in mirrors instead of emails, finally fixed her hair and strutted toward Lucas's office like she belonged there. Maria happened to be nearby, dusting the hallway shelves. Ava knocked once and pushed the door open without waiting. Terrible idea. "I have those reports you—" Lucas lifted his eyes sharply. His expression alone made her freeze. "Get out," he said, calm but cold enough to frost the windows. Ava blinked, confused, then fake laughed like she thought he was joking. I was just—" Lucas didn't raise his voice, but somehow the air felt heavier. "I don't repeat myself." Ava stepped back so fast she almost tripped on her own heels, then shut the door gently like closing a sleeping dragon's cage. When she turned around, her cheeks were bright red, her confidence suddenly missing. She saw Maria watching and snapped, "What are you staring at? Don't you have a toilet to scrub?" But she didn't wait for an answer. She just stormed away. Maria exhaled slowly, not because the insult hurt. She was used to those. But because she was relieved that Lucas hadn't seen that interaction. She didn't want the first thing he saw about her to be the way the world treated her. Hours later, the building finally calmed down. Lucas stayed inside his office, and no one dared disturb him unless it was life or death important. Maria knew the routine. Lunch break was when executives usually left the floor, meaning the office area would be quiet, enough for her to clean, without being in anyone's way. She rolled her cart forward and reached for the CEO's door. Breathing carefully, she knocked softly. No answer. She cracked it open and froze. Lucas wasn't gone. He was sitting on the couch instead of his desk, elbows on his knees, staring at that same family photo she saw earlier. For a moment, she thought about backing out quietly, pretending she never opened the door. But Lucas lifted his head. His eyes locked onto hers, not annoyed, not impatient, just curious. Maria instantly dropped her gaze and started to back up. I'm sorry, sir. I didn't realize— It's fine, he said, voice calmer than earlier. You can come in. Her fingers curled around the handle to steady herself. She stepped inside, gentle and careful, like walking into a memory she wasn't prepared to relive. Lucas studied her, the way she moved slowly, the way her eyes never stayed lifted for more than a second, the way she seemed to shrink herself to take up the least amount of space possible. Something about her bothered him, not in a bad way, but in a way that tugged at something buried deep in his chest. He watched as she picked up his coffee cup and wiped the table, her motions soft and familiar, too familiar. Then suddenly he spoke. Have we met before? Maria's entire body stiffened. It would have been easier if he yelled, if he ignored her, if he didn't ask the question her heart wasn't ready to face. She shook her head quickly. No, sir. Lucas tilted his head slightly, studying her face. You sure? He asked, voice lower, softer now, almost human, not CEO polished. You look familiar. Her breath hitched. She couldn't lie, not completely. But she couldn't tell the truth yet either. So she whispered the safest thing she could think of. People don't remember janitors, sir. I just blend in. Something changed in his expression. Confusion, frustration, maybe even guilt. But before he could ask anything else, someone knocked on the half-open door. His assistant. Sir, the board is waiting. Lucas straightened immediately. He stood, grabbed his suit jacket, and walked toward the door. But he paused beside Maria. Only for a second. And in that second, he noticed something he hadn't before in the necklace around her neck. The chain was thin and scratched, but the pendant— His eyes widened slightly. He remembered that pendant, from a memory he didn't know still existed. Before he could speak, the assistant called again. Sir, they're waiting. Lucas blinked, shook off the moment, and stepped out of the office. But not before looking at her one last time. This time not with confusion, not with curiosity, but with a question he wasn't ready to ask. And Maria? She stayed frozen in place. Because she knew the past was no longer staying buried. It was waking up. The rest of the day moved painfully slow. Maria tried to stay focused on her work, but every sound felt louder, every hallway felt longer, and that short interaction with Lucas replayed in her head like a song stuck on repeat. His voice, his eyes, that pause when he saw her necklace. It all made her heart race in a way she hadn't felt in years. By late afternoon, most employees started packing up, including the loud group that always treated the office like a social club. Ava was the loudest of them all, complaining about her day like she was the only person on earth who worked hard. I swear, the CEO was in such a foul mood today. She groaned as she grabbed her purse. I think cleaning toilets is more fun than dealing with him right now. She laughed at her own joke and elbowed one of her coworkers, who forced a laugh just to stay in her good graces. Maria was wiping down a conference table nearby, pretending not to hear. Ava noticed her silence again. You know, Ava started, walking toward her with crossed arms. Maybe you should be grateful. At least no one expects you to use your brain. Just clean and smile. That's your whole purpose. The words were sharp, but the cruelty behind them was worse. Maria finally looked at her, and for the first time, there wasn't fear or embarrassment in her eyes. There was sadness and disappointment. Not anger, disappointment. Ava wasn't expecting that. What? Ava scoffed, shifting uncomfortably. Did I say something wrong? Maria didn't speak. She just went back to cleaning. And somehow that silence made Ava feel smaller than any argument could. Minutes later, the hall grew quiet. Most employees had left, and evening light stretched across the windows. Maria finished her tasks and started, pushing her cart toward the elevator to finish for the night. She didn't notice Lucas standing at the end of the hallway until she walked right past him. He wasn't on the phone. He wasn't rushing. He was waiting. "Maria," he said softly. She froze. Her name. He knew her name. Slowly, she turned toward him. Lucas took a breath, almost as if gathering courage, something nobody in this building had ever seen from him. "Can we talk?" he asked. Maria hesitated, fingers tightening around the cart handle, but she nodded. He motioned toward his office. She followed him inside quietly. This time, the air felt different, heavier but not hostile. The door closed behind them with a soft click that echoed louder than it should have. Lucas walked toward the window, staring at the city like he was searching for answers in the skyline. Finally, he turned toward her. "That necklace," he said gently. "Where did you get it?" Maria swallowed hard. Her hand lifted instinctively, fingertips brushing the pendant. "I've had it for many years," she whispered. His jaw tightened, not in anger but in emotion he was trying to contain. "I've had it for many years," she whispered. His jaw tightened, not in anger but in emotion he was trying to contain. "I remember it," he said, "from when I was little." Maria's heart stuttered. Lucas continued, voice shakier than before. "I don't remember much from before my adoption, but there are pieces. A woman with soft hands. Someone who hummed when she made breakfast. Someone who wore that same necklace." He stepped closer, slowly, carefully, like he was afraid she might disappear. "Was that you?" Maria's eyes filled with tears. She didn't answer with words. She didn't need to, because heartbreak has a sound, and in that moment it was her quiet sob. Lucas's breath caught. His expression shifted, confusion turning to realization, realization turning into shock, shock melting into something tender and raw. He whispered, barely audible, "Mom?" Maria covered her mouth with her trembling hand. For years, she dreamed of hearing that word again. She nodded, tears falling freely now. Lucas closed the distance and pulled her into a hug. Not stiff, not distant, but desperate and emotional, like he was hugging a memory he never thought he'd feel again. Maria held on to him like she was afraid he might slip away. "I'm so sorry," she whispered into his shoulder. "I never wanted to lose you." Lucas squeezed her tighter. "I looked for you," he said, voice cracking. "They told me you were gone. I thought you didn't want me." Maria shook her head fiercely and cupped his face with shaky hands. "You were my whole world," she said, crying. "I left to protect you, not abandon you." Lucas closed his eyes and took a shaky breath. Silence filled the room, but this time it was peaceful, healing. Finally, Lucas pulled back slightly to look at her, and before either of them spoke again, the office door swung open. Ava stood there, mouth open, eyes wide, stunned. She looked from Lucas to Maria, to his arms around her. What is going on?" she demanded, voice high and irritated. Lucas didn't hesitate. His voice was firm, clear, unapologetic. "She's not just the janitor," he said. "She's my mother." Ava's face drained of color. Maria blinked in disbelief. But Lucas wasn't done. "And from this moment forward," he continued, "you will treat her with the respect she deserves." Ava just stood there, frozen, speechless, exposed. For the first time in her life, she had nothing to say. The next morning, word had already spread around the building like wildfire. You could practically feel the shift in energy. People who used to walk past, Maria, like she wasn't even breathing air, suddenly acted nervous, quiet, almost guilty. Some couldn't even look her in the eye. But Maria? She moved the same way she always did. Quiet steps, calm face, humble heart. But today, something was different. When she walked into the lobby, the security guard stood up straighter and nodded with respect. The receptionist, who usually scrolled on her phone pretending to be too busy to acknowledge her, actually smiled and said, "Good morning, ma'am." Maria paused for a second, not because she was confused, but because she wasn't used to being treated like someone who mattered. Before she could respond, one of the managers, The same guy who once laughed when she dropped a mop bucket rushed toward her. Hi, Maria. Can I help you with anything today? She just smiled kindly and shook her head. No, thank you. I'm just here to work. And she kept walking. People stared, not because she changed, but because they finally saw her. Upstairs, Ethan was already waiting for her. He wasn't in a suit today. He wore jeans and sneakers, something casual, something that felt familiar. And when he saw her, the tension in his posture melted into something soft, something grateful. I was hoping you'd come today, he said gently. Maria smiled. This is my job. I don't run just because people talk. Ethan stepped forward, voice low and real. I don't want you to work here anymore. Unless you want to. Maria blinked. What do you mean? He took a breath, the kind someone takes before saying something that matters so much it almost shakes them. You raised me to be better than what this company became. And I want you beside me and not behind me, not below me. I want you where you belong, at the table. Maria stood quiet for a moment, tears building slowly in her eyes. The same eyes that watched him grow from a scared boy into someone powerful. You don't owe me anything, Ethan, she whispered. He shook his head. No, you don't owe me anything. But the world should know who you are. The woman who gave everything so I could have a future. Then he gently placed a folder in her hand. Inside was a contract, not for janitorial duties, but for Vice President of Ethics and Employee Welfare. Salary, more than she'd ever dreamed of. Benefits full. Position, respected. Power, undeniable. Maria felt her breath tremble. Are you sure? Ethan smiled, the kind of smile that held pride, love, and payback for every time someone treated her like she was invisible. You didn't raise me to be quiet when something is wrong. You taught me to fix it. Then he added softly, and I want the world to know you're my mom. Maria covered her mouth with her hand, her heart too full to speak. Then, slow clapping, first one person, then two, then the whole room. Employees stood, even the ones who mocked her, clapping for the woman they looked down on because they never bothered to see her worth. Maria finally breathed out and whispered, I'm proud of you, my son. Ethan wrapped his arms around her, and for the first time in years, they felt like a family again. Later that afternoon, the workers who once ignored her lined up to apologize, and she accepted every apology with grace. Because strength isn't yelling or revenge, it's dignity. And now, nobody saw a janitor. They saw the woman who built a CEO. They saw the mother behind the success. They saw Maria, the woman worth respect.